Hey, this is KB. I'm a technologist, thought leader, and self-published author. I've been publishing ebooks, print books, audio, video, and other content online since 2015. I stumbled quite a bit, tried many different types of content, marketing strategies, software tools, and social media streams. Now I'm here to help you learn from my mistakes and find inspiration along the way. We'll take a journey together to leverage your content, dive into practical tips, and test out actionable strategies that move you from posts to profit. This is the Self-Pub Empire Podcast. Hey, welcome back to KB's Self-Pub Empire Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you really liked today's episode. I'm very excited about it, as moving through the publishing of my friend's book and doing that self-publishing process that I've been talking about in that previous episode. And this time, I'm going to walk you through the behind-the-scenes process that I use to create a book cover. I am not the greatest artist in the world. I will be very honest about that. I do like to place things and do graphical design and those kinds of things, and I am a little bit of an artist, but I don't really feel that I'm really good enough to actually create the art for the book covers, so I don't do that myself. But I do like to place things, and I think if you listen to my previous podcast, I would imagine that you heard me talking about placing images inside the podcast, inside the book itself, and those kinds of things, making sure that things line up and the graphics work. So I do enjoy that kind of work. I do enjoy that with book covers. So I'm going to approach this with my process, which is getting that artwork, getting it together, creating that book cover, and uploading it to Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, and making sure that that's that second big part in the process. So this is the continuation of that previous episode, episode 19, which I hope you went back to go ahead and check out. Definitely want to jump back into that. You can do so, selfpubempire.com/podcast/019, and you will jump right back in and listen to all of that commentary I had, the very, very detailed notes that I hope helped you about getting a book put together, making sure that that comes together nicely. So today I'm going to talk to you about that second part, creating that book cover. This is, again, the book cover that I've been doing in the book itself for the K-Square imprint that I have as part of the publishing that I use. I have multiple imprints that I use. I'm actually going to create another one for the podcast called Self-Pub Empire. Of course, KB Self-Pub Empire, that's going to be my next imprint, and I'm going to create that as well. But this is the K-Square imprint, so it's more artwork and more poetry and short stories and things like that. And this particular one is the book from my very good friend and author and editor. That would be Gene Lass, and his great book. This is called Peering in the Darkness. That particular one, it's great. It's great for short fiction. It's a great short fiction book. He's an excellent poet, great editor, good friend, and want to continue that process on and create that book cover with some artwork that was sent over to me and make sure that that's put together nicely. I want to talk about all that today, and I really hope you enjoy this podcast about how that process works. And here's the coolest part. You can create a book cover for free. There's a lot of ways to do it. Free is my favorite number. It's my favorite thing. Free. Who doesn't like free? Can't beat that. So to do this, I'm going to go through an overview of the 5 steps. These are kind of large, chunky steps. There's quite a few sub-steps that you can take in between each of them or inside each of these particular steps. But I didn't want to cover this to give you a roadmap of where we're going to go and talk through what it is that I'm going to talk through on this podcast. So the first one is, number one, my opinion, and it's my expert opinion, is to stub in the cover on Kindle Direct Publishing in your bookshelf in the cover creator and download that template. So that's step one. I talked about the cover creator on Kindle Direct Publishing in that last podcast when I was going through this. That's actually really important in this process. It gives you an idea where everything's going to sit in a cover, and you can go through and look at the preview and see what that looks like. I think it's really, really useful. Cover creator gets you there really fast. You just go there and you fill out some things that you can just throw away, and it gives you a really good idea of what that's going to look like. So that's number one. Stub something in, download the template. Number two, get the artwork for the front and back cover. So I'm going to talk about some details here, not about the getting part necessarily, but the details of what you will want to ask for if you're working with an artist or trying to get this in some kind of artwork yourself. And that is important, is how you do some of these things and what kind of files we're talking about here. Number 3, you need to understand the basic features and process of using GIMP. That's GIMP. This is the free part of this process. GIMP is really powerful. It's a Photoshop. It's really software similar to Photoshop. It's for free. I'll go into detail on that. I think it's fantastic. It is really well done. Cross-platform, you can use it on just about any device. It's fantastic. GIMP, GIMP. Number 4, importing the template and adding your layers. That's also very important. That's all these steps really important, is to get the template in, adding layers, understanding it. So that's where I'm going to kind of talk through some of the details about getting that lined up, making sure that works. So that's number 4. And number 5, you want to add your text and your extras and make sure you can get this exported appropriately. Again, all using GIMP. That's really important, obviously, as well, because unless you can upload it to KDP appropriately, you are not going to get what you want. It's going to not work. Your book is going to get rejected from the publishing process, which we call lovingly the grinder. We just put it through the grinder and see what comes out the other side. And sometimes things get rejected because things aren't lined up right. And I've stumbled a lot through that numerous times as I was trying to figure out how to make this thing work right. And really, it's not actually that difficult. It's just you really have to pay attention to certain specific things like line markers and trim sizes and so on and so forth. So that's number 5. Add text and extras and flatten and export that particular image out of GIMP. Make sure you upload that to Kindle Direct Publishing. And once you do that, you're going to have a fantastic book cover that's going to go along with your print. And remember, when you're publishing a book, my process is you want to create a print version first. There is no harm in creating a print version. You don't have to buy the print version, but it's nice to have multiple versions and not just focus on electronic or ebook or Kindle, because it is a lot easier to go from a print version that is well formatted into a Kindle version specifically for all the ebook readers out there, because the print version has more stringent details and making sure everything is lined up. So if you have everything lined up on the print version, the electronic version is going to look really good as well. And it's just a heck of a lot easier just to move from one to the other rather than from Kindle back to print. I think it's a lot more difficult to do, and I've run into problems doing it that way. So again, premise is we're going to go with print. We're going to create a book cover. I got our 5 steps here. So join me as we jump in today on creating our book cover. Hey, I want to tell you about something. Change the topic. I don't know about you, but I like things for free. And I put together a free guide to getting started on Kindle Direct Publishing. This guide is many pages of packed material for free for you to get started and writing your own book and using Kindle Direct Publishing to do it. There's a lot of tips and tricks that I jammed into this document. It's a free ebook, and you can find it on the website, selfpubempire.com/free. All you gotta do is put your email address in there, and we'll get you that free book as soon as we possibly can through the magic of the interwebs. And so I hope you enjoyed the free book. Please give it a try. I think you'll find out, judge for yourself, that it's very useful information. I've been publishing books in Kindle Direct Publishing for many years now. And I think this will help you because I ran all kinds of pitfalls, and maybe I can help you avoid a few, and you can get your book out, your masterpiece, out to the public, out to your fans, and have something there that will be out on Amazon for the ages. And remember, with Kindle Direct Publishing, it's all print on demand. So there's absolutely no inventory needed, and Amazon will basically sell it for you. So go ahead, get out there, selfpubempire.com/free, and check it out. It's the first entry there for the free getting started with Kindle Direct Publishing. I hope you enjoy it. Step 1, sub in a cover with the Kindle Direct Publishing cover creator and download a template. So the trick here is you want to go into your bookshelf on Kindle Direct Publishing, and go to the details page of your book that you're going. And I certainly hope at this point you've created an entry in your bookshelf for that book and start off with the initial information and so on and so forth and put those kinds of things in there. Then you want to go to that step 2 for the content and look for the cover creator. You can upload your manuscript. Hopefully that's all taken care of and go there and do the cover creator. I talked about this in the last podcast a little bit, and the importance of this is I think, fairly dramatic. You get to see what it is this is going to look like, especially when you hit the preview on the next page. So go into Cover Creator, create just a simple template, use their standard Photoshop information, Photoshop images, and just some basic information, and put those pieces in there. I don't know of anybody who actually uses Cover Creator to create covers that are actually being used. They aren't really very good. The layouts are good, but the artwork, of course, is just some generic artwork. And you kind of don't want that. You want specific artwork for your book, of course, especially if you're writing fiction and novels and stories and things like that. You're going to want very, very important to have information about your book on there, of course, with text. And of course, that you really want to have that artwork that matches the interior of your book. Once you do that, you're going to want to make sure then that you can download a template. So you go in to there's a place to click a link to download the template. This is, again, hopefully after you've got your manuscript updated and up there, so you know how many pages you're looking at, and you've selected your trim size. Very critical, extremely critical. I can't emphasize that enough. You got to make sure your trim size is correct. With the correct trim size, number of pages, it will calculate a cover template for you, which is really, really handy. It'll download it as a zip file when you ask for that. It's going to have a couple of files in it. There's going to be a PDF version of the template, and there's going to be an image version of the template. Usually it's a PNG file format for that particular template. That template is the book itself, cover, front and back, as if you had taken the book and you're looking at it here, of course, in the United States, and you opened up the back and laid it flat. So you can see the back on the left side and the front on the right. So you basically are breaking the spine. That's what the template looks like. It's really the front and the back cover, where the front's on the right, the back's on the left, if you've taken the book and laid it upside down. So you can see both and the spine at the same time. So that it wraps around the book itself. You will notice a number of things on there. You'll notice the exterior, of course, of the entire image is going to be much larger than your trim size. So if you've got a 6x9 trim size book, the front, just the front rectangle is 6x9, but it's more than 6x9, and the back is 6x9, and then the spine itself is a narrow rectangle calculated out based on the number of pages in your book. That's important because if you have enough pages in your book, you have a nice spine. And everyone knows that when you go to a bookstore, if you're looking for books and you happen to get some shelf space, your book is going to be judged by the fact someone's going to see that spine. And they're going to grab the book, pull it out, and look at the front cover based on the spine. So having a nice spine is really important. If you can't, that's okay. It doesn't matter too much. Content's important. Fans are important. Those things are important as well. But you get to do that and have that spine so that you have that visual, which I think is really, really interesting to see. If you have a lot of pages, you can see how big it actually gets. Once you have that template and you're looking at that, check out the line marks. There's red marks, dashed lines that really show you the trim. So that's kind of this bleed concept again, and really that's what that's all about. So the trim of the outside of the book is where it's going to get cut when the process of printing is taken care of. That trim size will show you with the red dots how much content you're going to want to have, or where you're going to want to end your content. I should put it that way. You want to have things that you want people to actually see for sure inside the red dotted outlines. That way you don't have that cutoff in the process. Sometimes you will want to spread your background color further out, like it could be a white color or a black color, red or whatever. Those colors are okay to have outside those red dotted lines. That's actually very much acceptable. But their automated systems will look for text and things like that that go over those red dotted lines or go outside that. If it does, it usually will reject the book. And that's something to really pay attention to. so that you know that you're going to have all of your, and it's good. I'm glad it's good that they do this. That way you've got all your text and everything else inside your red dotted lines. And that way you won't lose any of your title or byline or anything else that you want to show or any interesting artwork or whatever. So those are the important things there. One thing I did notice, one more tip I notice is that if you have a very complicated artwork on the front, and even if you're okay with that artwork spilling off outside the red bleed lines, they will sometimes reject it because it looks like actual important content to the system, and it'll say we're going to cut off something where people you might want to see that, and you can't really tell them that, hey, that's okay. I'm fine with this being cut off because that's just extra artwork I don't need. So be careful about that because I've seen that happen before. And you kind of have to size it in. So it's really good to have artwork that has a certain base color behind it, either like a black or a white or a color that you've chosen that blends really well with the rest of the artwork inside the red lines. That seems to work really, really well for me. So that is my recommendation to you, is to do it that way. So download that template, look at that image. There's a lot of documentation on Kindle Direct Publishing on those red lines and what they all mean and where everything stands. That's step number one. Stub something in, get a good view of what this looks like, download template, and really examine what it is that you've got, thinking about your artwork, thinking ahead. Step number two, hey, get your artwork for the front and the back covers. Could be just a blank white or black kind of cover on the back, but something hopefully interesting, exciting that you can have on the front cover. So you're going to need some artwork. You're going to need good artwork, hopefully great artwork. And unless it's a technical book, sometimes then you don't need such good artwork. I'm assuming you, my friend, are working in fiction, most likely, but technical books can really be just focused on bold graphics and bold text. That works just fine too, of course, for those kinds of books. For fiction and other books of that nature, just about every genre, poetry, artwork, those kinds of things, hey, get some good art. I've seen some interesting stuff done with artificial intelligence and like editing that kind of artwork. That's not always the best because it's a little derivative. You may not want to do that. I personally don't do that, but because I've always worked with artists. We've worked with artists most of the time for the covers. You can get artwork from folks that are willing to do that for you on demand or do it for you as a job. And sometimes that would be worth it if you can find some really good artwork. I would say that you really have to just find what it is that works best for you. And something simple could be actually very powerful, depending on what it is that you want to do. One of the tips that I would have for sure here is that sizing of the artwork. And this is really I want to focus is when you get to artwork, the dots per inch is really important. How much detail is going to go into this particular artwork? If it's not enough dots per inch, if it's not defined clear enough in the image, like spread out, like it's very small, potentially piece of artwork, and then you try to size it to the right trim size, it becomes really grainy and not very good. It will get rejected. 300 dots per inch would be what I recommend for that kind of artwork. More is better, and then you can size it down appropriately using the sizing tools in GIMP, which I'll talk about. Those are pretty good tools. You definitely want to size down rather than up, if at all possible. And that's really critical because, like I said, if it is spread too thinly, is spread out too much, if you try to size it up to the right size, you're going to lose definition. It's not going to be very crisp. It'll most likely get rejected if it's not enough dots per inch. Be careful with the images they send you. Compressed images these days, PNGs, JPGs, GIFs, so on and so forth, they tend towards to be lossful compression styles, or lossy compression styles. They compress the artwork by removing things that naked eye might not be able to see. And so they have less definition to them. A bitmap file, BMP, is the old Microsoft Windows bitmap style of image storage, and those are lossless. They actually are exactly every single pixel is not compressed. It's all in there no matter how many of these you might not even see with your naked eye. You could have all those things. I would go with bitmap if you can help it, because the bitmap is very specific to not losing any data of any kind in those images. You don't have to. Some of the PNG is very good. JPG is very good as well. Those are good compression formats in those images, but they do tend to be a little lossy. If they're really large images, then it works fine, because then you're scaling your image down anyway, and so you should be in good shape. If it's small and you're scaling up, it will not work very well. You're going to be really disappointed with the results of the print, even if they let it through. That is really, really important. Dots per inch, beware of compressed images. Try to get the basic image in a bitmap format so you've got all of that information in there. So hopefully you've got good front and back covers, and you can find some great ways to get those. Number 3, now for the fun part, GIMP. The basic features, I don't know why GIMP makes me laugh. The basic features and process of using GIMP. First and foremost, GIMP stands for GNU, or GNU, I should say, I'm sorry, Image Manipulation Program. It's free, it's cross-platform, you can use it on Linux, you can use it on Windows. It's amazing, it works very similar to Photoshop. It's extremely powerful, and like I said, it's free. I recommend downloading it, even if you're not doing a lot of image work. If you're just doing some basic things, you can use Microsoft Paint. I don't recommend it, but because of the layering you have in GIMP, you really get what you want to get when you're creating the image you want to get to. So I'm going to get to that in a second. It is complex. There's many tools baked into it. There are some basic features that really can get you to where you want to go. I'm not an expert on Photoshop, and I'm certainly not an expert using GIMP. But let me give you the pieces that I use to get through creating an image appropriately. A couple tools that you need to look at and learn. Lots of information online for GIMP. You can just look it up. Moving an image in particular, or moving a layer. Let me back up a step. Layers. Layers are the single most important feature you need to understand when you move to a Photoshop-like program. And GIMP is one of those Photoshop-like programs. Paint is very much not that way, Microsoft Paint, unless they updated it at the time of this list, at the time you're listening to this. But layers are very important in any kind of Photoshop-like or GIMP kind of program. A layer basically is an image that you can put things mentally on top of or underneath. More layers or more images on top of or underneath. And you can reorder those images, moving them up and down. It's like taking a number of pieces of paper or vellum or transparent, the old transparent plastic sheets, and putting them on top of each other and then reordering them. You can have transparency so you can see further down into the lower layers, or they can cover up things completely, or the images themselves or the layers are smaller than the entire picture itself, and therefore all these layers come together as a single unit, as a single image. This is important for a couple of reasons. One, you really want the template to basically be on the bottom, and you don't really want to see the template when you actually send this back up to Kindle Direct Publishing. But that doesn't mean you can't move the layer up, so you can see what's happening and see that your lines are correct. 2, you're going to want to maybe move things around and move one thing on top of something else, and it'll float on top of something else if it's a layer that's higher up. The other part of that layering is really important, is you can turn it on or turn it off. You can make it visible or invisible. So you can actually say, okay, I put this layer on. Now I need to look at the template. I'm going to make that invisible. Okay, that looks like it lights up. I'll make it visible again. And these things can appear and disappear in the collective image that you're putting together from what you're seeing. That's really important to make sure everything lines up correctly. So layers are the single most important feature to understand. Get to know them, get to understand them. The other tools that you want to know are how to move images around, particularly layers, moving layers around so they can line them up in the right spots. Scaling images, kind of like we talked about in the last tip, is really important. You can scale the entire image, you can scale layers. And finally, drawing text. And that's about making sure, I personally prefer to draw my title as text directly in GIMP and not try to draw it somewhere else unless I had some specific font that I was going to try to use. I don't really do that. I basically draw it on the image itself using the drawing text tool. Those are great. And the drawing text actually appears as an image as well. You can scale it, size it, move it, all of those things. And finally, you're going to want to understand how to zoom in and zoom out. And you can get to really, really, really zooming into the really finer points of your image as you go. And it sometimes really helps so you can make sure things line up correctly. Those are the things that I use. And I line things up usually by eye. There's a number of tools on there to line up layers and things like that using their tooling that I'm not very good at. So I don't really do that. But if you get good at that, you know, send me a DM, hit me up, tell me how you got away with it and do that. Tons of documentation on it. So understanding GIMP, downloading it, you can download it right off their site. Just I'll get the link in the show notes and you can just download GIMP directly, install on your computer. It's great. It works fantastic. So understand those basic features about GIMP. That'll get you 99% of the way there. All right, number 4. You want to import that template and get to it and add your layers. What I mentioned before is very, very true. You can really just drop and drag and import that template into GIMP. If GIMP is so powerful, it'll import pretty much whatever. So I prefer to use the PDF version of the template from KDP. So you get your template, you can pull that in pull the PDF out of the zip file that you get and drop it directly into GIMP. And it'll import it for you. Then it becomes your image in total. It'll create an image the size of the template itself correctly for the trim size. This is a big deal. If it's sized incorrectly for the trim size, you're going to have problems getting that loaded into KDP. So using the template, directly dropping it into GIMP, sizes it just right for what you want to use. That saves you a ton of headaches. It's terrible when it doesn't work and you're trying to figure out why. So that's what I would do. You just drop that into GIMP and boom, there it is. And you're going to have your red dots to show your trim size. And then you can start dropping in your images. When you paste, here's another tip. When you paste images into GIMP or PDFs or PNG files or whatever kind of artwork that you're going to use, you want to paste those as new layers. And then you can move the layers around, up and down, so on and so forth. Keep your template at the bottom. Start adding in your layers and seeing how that lines up. It'll take you a little time to get everything working, but generally speaking, you're going to find that as you get going through this, it's going to be pretty simple. And you're going to get your feet underneath you, and you're going to come up with a really nice looking front, spine, and back cover. Remember the spine. You probably want to put your text on the spine sideways. So there's another little tip. There's a transform. You can transform a layer and rotate it 90 degrees. Really powerful, very handy to use for the spine, especially when it comes to text. Makes it look really great. So import your template, add your layers. That was tip number 4. Tip number 5, the last one. We are almost there. Your image should look pretty darn good at this point. You should have some nice front and back images. You should have some information on the spine. Something to remember about Kindle Direct Publishing in the print version is they want to put a pretty big barcode on your book. That's okay. That ends up in the lower right corner of your back cover. That part of the back cover, you are going to want to keep open. You don't want to put any text or any graphics there. If you can help it, it will most of the time, if you put some light graphics there and it gets covered up by the barcode, most of the time it'll go through the publishing process. But I've seen many times where it just rejects it and says, our barcode's going to cover that up. You can create a barcode of your own and put it on there yourself. I personally do not recommend that. It's a lot easier just to have Amazon do that for you and put that barcode right on there for you, and you don't have to worry about it. Just keep your text away from that spot. You'll be able to see where that is on the template. It will show you where that barcode's going to go. So you've got all these pieces in there. You want to make sure that your template is not visible as a layer. You're going to want to start adding your text. So get your title text on there. Beware of the lines. You want to make sure they're inside the red dotted lines, like I've said before. It feels like I'm kind of preaching about that one, but it's a big deal. Make sure you keep it in line so you don't get it trimmed off. You don't want your title trimmed off. And make sure you get your text on there. Get some text in the back. Talk about how wonderful your book is. Throw some cool quotes on there. Any kind of reviews or early praise for whatever. Get that on there to help people convince and market and see your book. That's a critical piece. And this is why I called this one high performance marketing. If you have a great cover, your marketing is so much easier. People see it, they like it. Artwork looks good, the text looks professional. It doesn't look like somebody just did vanity press and want to create a book for themselves. If it's something you really seriously want to sell, it's not vanity press. Make it look good. Make sure the text is compelling. Heck, put a quote in the front on the front cover so people can see that right away. As a side note, what's very interesting is that the the part on the front cover itself, and this is a tip for the next one, when you're actually creating a Kindle book, is to have that as your front cover. You actually cut that part out, run it in GIMP, and just turn it directly into just that cover page, that cover piece for your book, for your Kindle book. It doesn't use the whole cover. I guess that's my point. It only uses the front. But if you create a really great front back spine, you can just cut that front piece out and use it right away, and it looks exactly the same as your print book, and it looks really professional and really great. So add in your text, add in your extras, any kind of things you want. Final step to get this to where you want to go. Final steps. You want to flatten your image. So save your image. Do not just don't do this before you save your image. Save your image, and you want to save it as an XCF file. That is the base GIMP file type, which has all of the details and extras in it. Then to do the export, you want to go to image and you want to flatten the image. What this does is it takes all the layers, it compresses them together. It's one layer, which then makes the export much, much better. And here's the funny part. You have to export to PDF, not an image. You have to export to PDF. So why is that important? PDF is not lossy. It's a lossless type file that you create because it wants all of the details of that image in that file. And so PDF is a very nice portable way to do that. Set your settings. Make sure you're not compressing it for the internet. Do an export for PDF and export the file PDF. Go back into Kindle Direct Publishing and upload that into the cover page. It will take a little while to work through the system and go to preview. You will be very impressed with your results. All right. So we really hit a lot of material today, more probably this in my process, at least with GIMP, than I think I can even cover in a single podcast. So, hit me up on DMs anywhere, Instagram, wherever, and let me know if you want more detail about this. Certainly, using GIMP for book covers isn't necessarily something you're going to find out there, but I think it's a really great way to do it. I love it. I got a great, to me, it's a great system to use for that. So how do we do today? We stepped in our cover creator and downloaded our template. That was the first step. We got our artwork, front back covers, being aware of the sizing. Be careful about lossy data compression type files. We understood the basic features and processes using GIMP. Layers, 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 layers. Learn layers. If you want to learn something, learn layers. You want to import that template. Add those layers in of your artwork and make sure they line up appropriately. And then finally, you add your text and your extras and you save it first. Then you flatten that image and export it and discard those changes. You don't want to save your image flat. You want to save it with all of those layers actually in there. And I think you'll find the results to be outstanding. With a great cover, you will have easier time marketing your book and talking about it on Instagram or all the social media sites and moving from posts to profits. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm very excited about this. I think I love helping people with this kind of thing. And I really am looking forward to seeing what people do. Let me know. Hit me up in the DM somewhere. Find out. Tell me what you got. Show me what you're working on. I'm looking for people to interview on my podcast as well. Self-published authors talk about their success and how they do their processes and go through there. Thanks and have a great day.
Hey, congratulations. You just listened to another episode of the Self-Pub Empire podcast. I really hope you found something inspiring, useful, and actionable for your own entrepreneurial and business aspirations. Let's keep connecting as solopreneurs, authors, and online creators of all kinds. For more information, how-tos, great tools, and show notes for the show, head over to selfpubempire.com. podcast. Until next time, let's continue moving from posts to profit.